Good evening. Hi, um, dear postgraduate students. It's been quite a while. We must apologize. We've had a break in transmission. Unfortunately, the platform that we rely on and the rest of the world are relying on, MS Teams, has had some difficulties over the last few days, particularly with respect to the type of MS Teams that we use. We are on MS Teams live events, which is for people with many attendees. And that's actually been causing us a lot of trouble. It's not yet been resolved, but we are almost there. So unfortunately, we have had to rely on a lot of recordings, and those recordings were also proving difficult to upload. So we are on top of that and should have all the recordings that are owed to you within the next 2 or 3 days, touch wood. My name is Professor Tennyson Mokuchini. Many of you already know me as the project leader. I also have been the person who's facilitating this series of lectures on methodologies and research designs. Basically, we had identified the whole week to run you through qualitative research designs, quantitative research designs, and tonight was meant to be about mixed methods research designs. But of course, you will have noticed that we've had to pull back and slow down things a little bit because the recording of events took a little bit of time. It took a little bit of time. In fact, everything has been recorded, but uploading it onto the platform is difficult. So that's where the delay has come from. What I have to share with you is that today we've invited everybody to a question and answer session. The intention was that you would have all had access to all the presentations by now, so you can ask about things that are related to the presentations. Of course, that has not happened to plan. So what we will do is we will make this live question and answer session be the first of potential. We will advertise another one for midweek next week sometime, so that when you've had a chance to listen to all the videos, you get an additional opportunity to ask questions during a live event such as this. So as we begin now, what I'm going to do is invite all of you to ask any questions that you have in relation to the program in general, in relation to particularly the methodological things that we have shared with you up to this point. If you are worried also about the arrangements going forward, this is a good time to get into that. You will also notice that somehow the beaming of my image is a little bit distorted. That's a function of, unfortunately, the problems that MS Teams live events is having right now. So in any case, what we normally do at this point is we would invite you to post your questions, and then I will also turn off my video feed and allow this to continue. We will continue up until about 6:45. And so during now and that time, I am live on this streaming line conversation chat, and will accept any questions that you have. But please don't be discouraged by this sudden change of things. It's actually a global issue. I don't know if you're all aware that the whole world rely on Zoom and they rely on MS Teams. So when things change in terms of the pressure that's placed on them, as some of the countries are locking down and all that sort of stuff, then suddenly some of the capabilities of the system are put to test, and usually we get this range of challenges. But in the same speed, Microsoft tend to come back and fix it all. So we should have a smooth running system the next time we're lecturing. But for now, I invite questions, and I will respond to them. If they are written, I will, if the questions are written out, I will respond to them. At this point, we actually have a number of attendees. I'm looking at, it looks like we have close to 100 attendees at this minute, but we are yet to see any questions that people have asked. In any case, I will turn off my video feed and kind of hang around a little bit, waiting for things to kick off as far as questions are concerned. While I wait, I think I'll take this opportunity just to share some developments around the program, and please don't let these take you away from your intention to ask questions. Firstly, you will all be aware that the general idea that we had was that we would run these initial sessions, and once we've run the initial sessions, we will soon be inviting yourselves and any one of your peers to submit the work that they've been working on. And we have a number of professors and consulting moderators that we call them, who would be willing to review your work and just do some critical reading and give you guidance on specific questions that you have. So if you're someone who's written something up and you're worried that the problem statement does not sufficiently capture what it is that you want to problematize in your study, then we have the opportunity as part of the program to do that for you. Of course, this we will advertise at a reasonable time. We always believe that we need to have acquainted you to quite a substantial amount of the material so that we can actually review something that has the necessary amount of depth. And often, if we don't do that, people will submit things before they've had an opportunity to benefit from our teaching. And as such, the work tends to be a bit misguided. So the delay is just to allow us to give you a chance to learn a bit from these sessions. But so in your diary, please put aside the fact that you will be invited at some point to submit the progress that you are making or any challenges that you have. As a principle and as a basic philosophy of this program, we work to support your supervisory arrangements. So some of you might already have supervisors who have directed you in very specific ways. It is our idea that we don't want to contradict those ways, but we want to enhance them. We want to defend your positions better. We want to kind of expose you to what examiners would be looking for, so that you can make sure that your work is well-rounded, but it's rounded up in a way that would allow your supervisor to also feel like we have not marginalized them or kind of undervalued their contribution. There are, of course, some of you who are doing your proposals and have yet to be afforded the luxury of or the right of a supervisor as yet. Obviously, we then become your primary critical reading entity, and we would be happy to support you with that understanding. But the whole issue is that we are really trying to help you, to align you as best as possible for the department where you are likely to be submitting your work. And for those of you who know individuals within the department, in readiness for your supervisor. So that's one of the things that's coming up. Of course, in addition to this, you'll be happy to know that particularly those of you who are doing doctoral studies, but this also applies to the master's students, we run sessions on how to write an article for publication. So those of you doing your doctorates will have been advised of the fact that UNISA has a policy where we require a student to have completed their at least one article for publication, and we use that as a primary, as one of the additional requirements that students have. Traditionally, this has always run without students being trained on how to write articles, and people just write papers and hope that a journal will accept them. You don't have to be exposed to that anymore, because we will, as part of the program, we're going to have sessions that we'll have sessions that are intended to train you on article writing. Additionally, I'm sure all of you would agree that the journey of being a student is quite financially disadvantageous. You're likely to find yourself struggling to pay off fees and all sorts of things. And what we do is we also have a session where we train, more than a session actually. We have a course element where we train you on how to write for grants. So when we write for grants, and when we train you for writing for grants, the idea with training you to write for grants is so you can apply for grant opportunities and maybe augment the money or add to the current financial access that you have within your current study arrangements. So some of you will be able to get a little bit more money to assist you with data analysis and so forth. But we will train you on how to write grants, so you have access to those things. Additionally, there is a program which we will advertise probably in the next week or two. We call it the WhatsApp Open Online Course, and it's a partnership that we have, and it's the first partnership in the world actually that Facebook have got with a university, where they work to use all their connections with entrepreneurs and online businesses and so forth to bring to us and to you as our students a self-marketing course that basically teaches you how to develop your entrepreneurial skills, to develop things to do with how you self-market, all in readiness of being either an employer yourself or being employed. So those are the kind of things that this program is projected to be offering to you. But without further ado, I notice I'm looking at the live event Q&A, and I seem to have something from Pindi, who is asking whether when using mixed methods, is it important to have a model in your research work? We actually, I note that we probably need to do a session on theoretical and conceptual frameworks, and part of this is because there's a lot of misunderstanding around whether or not studies should have a model or not. And the answer is not straightforward, but I will try to give you something that should satisfy your current question that you've posed, and should also assist you in just being ready for future challenges around this. So those of you doing a full master's dissertation and those of you doing a doctorate, there is always a requirement that you have a distinct chapter that is around the inclusion of theoretical frameworks. So because of that, regardless of whether your study is mixed methods, or regardless of whether it's quantitative or qualitative, you are expected to have a chapter in your dissertation or in your thesis that talks about theoretical frameworks or conceptual frameworks. And that chapter is where you introduce us to some theories that you believe are useful for us to understand your topic better. So essentially, the answer to Pindy's question is that yes, it is important to have a model. In a full master's dissertation or in a doctoral thesis, you would probably represent that model in a standalone chapter where you pick 2 or 3 models that you think are relevant and so on. In some cases, there are some disciplines that say you don't need a standalone chapter, but in your second chapter, in your chapter 2, where you review literature, one section of the literature that you review will be the section with the theories and the models that you believe are relevant to your work. So essentially, regardless of what type of master's you're doing or what type of doctorate you're doing, there is going to be a model that you include in your work. Now, I keep referring to a full master's, and I say full because there are other versions of masters that exist. So there are students on this program who may be doing what they call a mini dissertation, or sometimes they'll ask you to just do a report, a research report. And basically those are versions of a master's dissertation, but they are shorter. Sometimes they talk about a dissertation of limited scope. Basically, what is being said there is that people are doing a master's degree, but it is the format of their course of study is such that they're allowed to do a shorter dissertation with fewer objectives, shorter pages, and so forth. And that version of dissertation will have some reference to theories, but it will not be in a standalone chapter. So just be aware that theory does exist. It should be there, but it just may not appear in the same format across different levels of study. Some will have it in a standalone chapter. For some, it will be buried in the literature review, and for others, even in the introductory chapter. But the answer is yes, you will always have a model that you should include. Right. There's something that says, look, I'm reading this question and I'm not entirely sure that it's, I will check once I get to it. If I use design science in information systems following a systematic literature review, does it particularly follow mixed methods, or quantitative can also be adopted? Okay, so look, the mixed methods research, the session that I was going to teach, you should have been having today, will have clarified these things. So the only time we call anything mixed methods is if the mix involves something that is qualitative and something that is quantitative. If you have multiple approaches that are all quantitative, that is not a mixed method study. It's still a quantitative study with multiple approaches. So similarly, if you have a qualitative study that uses a wide range of different qualitative approaches, it is not a mixed method study. It is a qualitative multi-approach study. The only time these studies that the only time that we talk about mixed methods is if there is a mixture of qualitative and quantitative. So I hope that this question that's anonymously submitted has been attended to. Look, there are some questions here that are a little bit too specific to answer generically, but can a person in information systems use structured equation modeling and analysis, or it applies to those in social sciences? The answer to that is yes, you can use structured equation modeling, but with research, the responses are never black and white in the way that I think this question has been posed. Whatever you use, you have to have given a logic and defended by citing others who have done similar things, or by citing a defenses or rationale that can be supported by evidence. So any direction you choose to take, you can only choose it if you believe that it is a norm that you can show exists. It is something that you can defend because there's previous literature that has gone that way. Those are the kind of defenses that you use. So superficially, yes, you may, but you can only do so if you have you can only do so if you have actually attended to the issues of giving a rationale, defending your choice, making sure that you cite relevant literature and so forth. Let us see. All right. I'm just going to check. Okay. Right now, Rolf has quite a substantial question, which I will read word for word. I hope that I capture it well. I have a problem about my methodology and strategy for my research. I'm busy in my master's proposal in philosophy. The methodology that I thought best to prove what I want is a deconstruction and reconstruction one. I want to dissect two different philosophical thinking patterns in all its parts, also identifying the relationships between the different parts. The goal is to identify which small aspects of the two philosophies are really contradictory, with the intent of reconciling the main aspects of the two. Okay. He makes reference to a person who has done this. Dewey did something like that with philosophy in general some time ago, but I don't see this method or anything comparable. So what I want to know is if it will be allowed. I need to know because I have to explain my proposed methodology in the master's proposal. So, Rolf, there's and I hope I've said your name correctly, but the first thing with any study is that you have to be very specific about the fact that there's a phenomena of interest or there is a particular problem that needs to be understood better, and that by through your exploration of that phenomena, you have shown that our failure to understand it better would result in something that we do not want. So, some problem of sorts. So clearly, even your decision to deconstruct and construct one philosophical position and so forth can't just be something that you wish to do because it looks like a great idea. It has to be something that has been driven by a problem that you can state by showing evidence that there is a real life space in which this problem exists. So currently, the way I read this, it looks like you have an idea of how you want your study to play out. But with research, the idea is not to have a preconceived idea of how a study will play out. You're meant to have a preconceived idea of the problem you're trying to solve. Then you ask yourself, what are the range of tools that are available to me to look at that problem? If the range of tools that are there involve you doing a comparative study between two approaches, then you can say that, look, you are going to do a comparative analysis and make that be the topic that you look at. Of course, the questions that you're interested in will define whether your work is quantitative or qualitative. I can only assume, and this is a dangerous assumption, in that if you're you are in the philosophy world, it is more likely that you will be doing something that is qualitative. And from just my knowledge of these things, one of the potential places that you can do is in qualitative research. People will sometimes tend to go for narrative analysis, which is one of the traditions of qualitative research that I spoke about. So you will analyze two different storylines really for different positions that are held, and then so it will be a comparative narrative analysis approach where you kind of compare two narrations around a particular philosophical position, and then when you compare them, you can highlight the differences and so forth and so forth. But the primary mode of exploration will be narrative analysis. Or some people will say, look, you can do a different type of thing where people will say, look, why don't you consider discourse analysis? So, but all of these things come from the traditions of qualitative research that I described in the last session. I think this session is probably being posted now. I think the qualitative session has already been posted, and I advise you to go and have a look at that. But clearly, my challenge with your study is more to do with the fact that you know what you want to do in the study, but it is unclear what the problem that you're addressing is. So the bigger thing with any study is to paint what it is that you believe is the current challenge that deserves research. And then on the strength of that, say, look, if this is the challenge, what are the best means by which someone can address these challenges? Right. I have attended to those questions. Yeah. So Rolf, I see you have proceeded on by saying that you are following on from your previous question, where you see that many writers have said that these two philosophical thinking systems that you're looking at are not compatible with each other and so forth, and you want to disprove that. So there's a particular danger. In fact, the basic story is that you should not do a study for which the answer is already known before you depart. So when I read this, there's already a potential toxic possibility in that you seem to know the answer you want. And if you already know the answer you want, then you can't subject that you can't say that this is indeed a research problem. But what you can say is that you can say, look, currently these are the challenges that exist around the way people understand and perceive these two philosophical thinking systems. And what you want to do is to do a comparison study where you compare them, and of course it's a comparative analysis that you're doing of the two, and then you compare them with an understanding that you don't really know what the outcome of your comparison will be. Because the minute you enter the field of research and you already are saying you want to conclude by showing that A does this, it is against the grain of what philosophical research would look like. Sometimes in quantitative research, where people are doing cause and effect, they can offer a hypothesis. But remember, qualitative research, which you are likely to be most certainly going to be doing, you cannot do that. You do it as an exploratory journey rather than one where you are proving cause and effect and so forth. So I hope that that offers some helpful direction. Look, folks, I think the questions that people are asking seem to be diverting slightly from quite a bit, actually, from where we are at in this program. I see one that's asking about model evaluation and model validation. I can answer this because I know the answer, but when it's presented in a vacuum, it's very difficult to answer it. And my suggestion with things like this is that typically I would just say to people, look, you probably need to Google things that are standalone questions that are not part of where we have got to, but in the fact with the current space that we have to consider these things, I am able to respond. So look, really, ultimately, the difference between an evaluation and a validation is with an evaluation, you are assessing whether something is useful or not useful. And with validation, you are assessing whether something is indeed true or not true. So when someone does model validation, they are actually assessing whether that model is valid. Is it representative of the truth as you understand it? Does it speak to the concepts that it claims it's interested in? But model evaluation is if you have a model and you are evaluating whether it actually works in practice or not, and you are testing it in situations. So most of the times people will do model validation first to confirm that the model is indeed valid and speaks to the truth. Then once the model has been validated and accepted, they would go out into the practice area and test it out to see where it works, and that part is model evaluation. Yeah, right. Okay. Right, folks, I'm looking at this and I noticed we don't have any more questions at this very moment. But my position, as I had said earlier, was that I want you all to just be aware that we are going to circulate the sessions, and you can watch the videos. We're emailing also the PowerPoint presentations for the week that has gone. And then we will offer another opportunity. We have to give it some days to give you a chance to watch and listen to these things. We will offer another opportunity for question and answers with the view that actually you would have listened to these things, and the questions and answers will be questions that exist in spite of you having listened. So I think that's where we're at. I will be sending as a lot of communications around the current revised program presentation style. And this, by the way, is very temporary. Our idea is that our 6 o'clock sessions will return full force. We just need to make sure that we are not caught up by the challenges that MS Teams has had. It's Friday evening, and I'm looking right now, and I think it's a great thing that we have had this opportunity to partially catch up. But what I'm saying to you all is that please pursue the videos. There's a couple more that I need to upload because there's one more on qualitative research methods. Then there's one more, the final one on mixed method research, and both of which need to be uploaded. And really, we're just being held back because the system seems to take hours and hours to upload a 40-minute session. But and then once we have done that, we'll give it 3-4 days and we will circulate a date for us to meet again, so we can do a Q&A. But the bigger program that relates to the program or to the bigger project will continue as per plan. I'm not seeing any other questions at this point, and I just want to close by saying you'll get an opportunity. There'll be an opportunity for another question and answer session sometime next week, probably the latter part of next week, so you've had a chance to listen to everything. I thank you for your participation, and I wish you a really good evening. And if, of course, there are other outstanding questions that people have, please feel free to join us or to send to us on any of our research emails that we have. Thank you.